You work 50, 60, 70 hours a week, but the bank account looks like a fucking joke. You look at billionaires and think, am I dumb or is the game rigged? Here's the truth no one wants to tell you. The game was rigged from day one. Politicians love this fairy tale. Quote zero, the American dream. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps. You've heard it a million times. Meanwhile, billionaires pay their PR teams to write books. I started with nothing. Except they forgot to mention Dad's $300,000 loan and his Rolodex full of investors. You're told, if you're broke, it's your fault. Not smart enough. Not hungry enough. Bullshit. Let's talk numbers. Top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 50% combined. Think about that. Half the planet has less than 1% of the people. Billionaires pay 3 to 8% in taxes. You, 25 to 40%. Who's the real freeloader here? Real wages grow 2% a year. Inflation, 8%. Corporate profits, record highs. Someone's getting rich. Spoiler, not you. They say, quote, 2. You already work harder than your grandparents, but they bought a house on 1 income. You can't afford rent on 2. Imagine a casino. You walk in with $100. The guy next to you, $10 million. Same table, same game. But here's the kicker. His family wrote the rules. Capital gains tax, 15%. Your income tax, 25%. Who designed that? When the economy crashes, who gets bailouts? When you lose your job, who gets told, quote, 3? This isn't a level playing field. This is meritocracy theater. Who wins? The top 1%. Families like the Waltons, Bezos, old money dynasties. They own assets, stocks, real estate, intellectual property rights. Assets that generate passive income while they sleep. You trade time for money. They trade money for more money. And the system is designed to keep it that way. BlackRock and Vanguard control over $20 trillion in assets. That's more than the GDP of most countries. Think they want the rules to change? The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed. To extract your labor and keep you in place. Money makes money. Poverty makes poverty. That's not a bug. That's the feature. So next time some asshole in a $5,000 suit tells you to quote 4, remember, he started the game with 10 million chips. You started with 100. Don't let them gaslight you. You're not lazy. You're not dumb. You're playing a rigged game. But how exactly does this trap work? Let me show you the mechanism, the chains, the castes, and how the system turned money into a weapon against you. Let's take 2 people. Same country, same year. Both successful by society's standards. John makes $75,000 a year as a software engineer. Not bad, right? Middle class. The American dream. Michael makes $15 million a year. From investments. He doesn't write code. He doesn't manage anyone. Money makes money. John pays 25% in taxes. That's $1,562 gone before he sees it. $1,800 for rent. $400 for health insurance. $600 for car payments and gas. $500 for food. $150 for utilities. Another $500 for everything else. At the end of the month, $700 left. If he's lucky. If nothing breaks. If no emergencies happen. Michael owns $200 million in assets. Stocks, real estate, bonds. Those assets generate 7.5% a year. That's $15 million. While he sleeps, while he vacations in the Maldives, while he plays golf. He pays 8% in taxes. Capital gains rate plus loopholes his accountants found. That's $1.2 million. After taxes and living expenses, $13 million left over. Every single year. John pays 25% on his labor. Michael pays 8% on his wealth. Why does the guy trading time for money pay 3 times more in taxes than the guy making money from money? Who's the real parasite here? John saves $700 a month. That's $8,400 a year. In 20 years, maybe $200,000. If he's disciplined. If he never gets sick. If his car doesn't die. Michael adds $13 million to his pile. Every year. In 20 years, that's an extra $260 million. Plus compound interest, over $400 million. How the fuck is John supposed to catch up when Michael adds more to his wealth in 1 year than John will earn in his entire life? John will never catch up. Mathematically impossible. This isn't an accident. This is by design. Tax laws are written by lobbyists hired by the Michaels of the world. The system extracts wealth from Johns and funnels it to Michaels. Who wrote these tax laws? Who benefits from them? But this didn't happen overnight. This system was built, deliberately, over decades. Let me show you how. Stop. This math didn't appear out of thin air. To understand how money became chains, we need to go back. Way back. 1944. Forget John and Michael for a second. Let's talk about how this casino got built, who wrote the rules, and why you're still playing by them. July 1944. World War II is still raging. Hitler's still alive. D-Day happened a month ago. The Pacific War is grinding on. But 730 delegates from 44 countries are chilling at a luxury hotel in New Hampshire. Mount Washington Hotel, Bretton Woods. Official story? We're building a system for peace and prosperity through economic cooperation. Real story? The winners are dividing the world and writing the rules for the next century. They create 2 institutions, the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. And they make a decision that changes everything. The US dollar becomes the world's reserve currency. Every other currency pegs to the dollar. The dollar pegs to gold at $35 per ounce. Who has most of the gold? The United States. 70% of the world's gold reserves. Convenient, right? This is the moment money stopped being neutral and became a weapon. John Maynard Keynes represented Britain. Harry Dexter White represented America. White won. Dollar hegemony was born. 1950s and 60s. The old empires collapse. Britain, France, Belgium pull out of Africa and Asia. Independence, freedom, flags and national anthems, countries celebrating in the streets. But did the extraction stop? Fuck no. It just got a software update. The guns left. The briefcases arrived. Enter the IMF and World Bank, the new colonial officers. Except now they wear Armani, not khaki. Here's the playbook. Your country needs money for roads, schools, hospitals? Great. Here's a loan. But, and this is key, there are conditions. Structural adjustment programs, they call it. Privatize your water. Sell your state companies to foreign investors. Open your markets. Remove trade barriers. Cut social spending. Fire government workers. Austerity. Oh, and you must repay in dollars. which means you need to export raw materials to earn dollars. Copper from Zambia, oil from Nigeria, lithium from Chile, coffee from Colombia, cocoa from Ghana, coltan from Congo, all sold cheap on global markets, all priced in dollars, all flowing to Wall Street and the City of London. The country stays poor, the debt grows, the resources leave. Forever. Example: Zaire, now called Democratic Republic of Congo. 1965. Mobutu Sese Seko takes power in a CIA-backed coup. He rules for 32 years with Western support. The IMF and World Bank loan him over $5 billion. For development. Where does the money go? Swiss bank accounts. Mobutu's personal fortune? $5 billion. Palaces, private jets, shopping sprees in Paris. Meanwhile, the Congolese people are starving. Infrastructure crumbles, schools close, hospitals run out of medicine. But the debt stays on the country's books. Congo has to pay it back, with interest. And Congo? Richest country in the world by natural resources. 80% of global cobalt. Coltan in every smartphone on the planet. Copper, diamonds, gold, uranium. But GDP per capita? $400 a year. The resources leave, the people stay poor. The debt grows. This is the system working exactly as designed. Think of IMF loans like a credit card designed by a loan shark. You're broke. Your car's broken. You need $1,000 to fix it so you can get to work. You go to the bank. They say, sure, here's $1,000, but interest rate is 18%, and you must spend $400 at my brother's overpriced repair shop. Oh, and you have to fire your current mechanic and hire this cheaper guy who doesn't know what he's doing. Also, sell your spare tire. We need collateral. You're desperate. You take the deal. What choice do you have? Your job depends on that car. Now you owe $1,180. You make minimum payments, $50 a month, but interest keeps piling up, every month, compounding. 5 years later, you've paid back $3,000, and you still owe $900. That's the IMF. Except instead of a car, it's your country's water system. Instead of $1,000, it's $5 billion. Instead of 5 years, it's 50. And that quote 10? It's a multinational corporation that extracts your resources while you pay the interest forever. This is a debt trap by design, not by accident. You're always paying, never free. The debt is the chain. Fast forward to 1971. Nixon's got a problem. The U.S. printed too many dollars to pay for the Vietnam War. Guns, bombs, napalm, soldiers, all cost money. Countries like France are demanding gold in exchange for their dollars. Charles de Gaulle literally sent warships to New York to pick up gold. But there's not enough gold. America printed more dollars than they have gold to back it. Oops. August 15, 1971. Nixon goes on TV. Sunday night, interrupts Bonanza. Quote 11. Translation. The dollar is no longer backed by gold. It's backed by trust and B-52 bombers. Temporary becomes permanent. 1973. It's official. The dollar is fiat currency, backed by nothing except the promise of the U.S. government and the threat of military force. But here's the genius move. Oil, the world's most important commodity, can only be sold in dollars. The petrodollar system. Saudi Arabia agrees. We'll sell oil exclusively in dollars. In exchange, the U.S. protects the monarchy. Need oil? You need dollars. Every country needs oil, so every country needs dollars. Enforced by aircraft carriers. Ask Libya what happens when you try to sell oil in gold dinars. Ask Iraq what happens when you threaten to sell oil in euros. 1980s. Reagan and Thatcher declare war on regulation. Let the market be free, they say. Deregulation, privatization, break the unions. Cut the top tax rate from 70% to 28%. Wall Street goes fucking wild. Stocks, bonds, derivatives, futures, options on futures, options on options. Companies stop making products. They start playing with money. General Electric used to make light bulbs and jet engines. By 2000, half its profit came from GE Capital, its financial arm. They made more money lending and investing than actually manufacturing anything. 1999, Glass-Steagall Act, the law that separated commercial banking from investment banking since the Great Depression, is repealed. Signed by Bill Clinton. Now, your bank can gamble with your deposits. Commercial banks, where you keep your savings, can now do high-risk investment banking. What could go wrong? Meanwhile, real wages flatline. Productivity goes up 60% since 1980. Workers produce more. But they don't see that money. Where does it go? Shareholders, executives, stock buybacks, dividends. CEO pay goes from 30 times the average worker to 300 times. By 2007, the financial sector makes 40% of all corporate profits. They're not building anything, just moving money around, extracting value. 2008, the House of Cards collapses. Lehman Brothers dies. September 15th, panic spreads. Bear Stearns, gone. Merrill Lynch, sold. AIG begging for cash. Who caused the crisis? Wall Street. Subprime mortgages packaged into derivatives. AAA ratings on garbage. Betting against their own clients. Fraud on a massive scale. Who pays for it? You, the taxpayer. Congress passes a $700 billion bailout. TARP. Too big to fail, they said. But that's just what you saw on the news. The Federal Reserve quietly loaned banks $16 trillion in emergency funds, secret loans, 0% interest, to save the same institutions that caused the collapse. 10 million families lost their homes, foreclosures, evictions, savings wiped out, retirements destroyed. How many bankers went to jail? 0. Not one CEO, not one CFO, not one trader. In fact, they got bonuses. $20 billion in bonuses in 2009 for destroying the economy. Goldman Sachs paid $16 billion in bonuses the year after the bailout. The system didn't collapse. It just transferred the losses from banks to you. Now you understand. John and Michael aren't just two people with different luck. They're playing in a system designed to extract wealth from John's and concentrate it in Michael's. Built in 1944 at Bretton Woods. Weaponized in 1971 with the Nixon shock. Financialized in the 1980s with deregulation. Bailed out in 2008 at taxpayer expense. The tax code favors capital over labor. Wages are suppressed. Assets are monopolized by those who already have them. Michael gets richer while sleeping. John works until he dies and stays exactly where he started. This isn't a bug. This is the system working exactly as intended. Remember John and Michael? Now you know the history, the architecture. But how does this trap work day to day? How does the system extract wealth from John and pump it into Michael's accounts? Let me show you the mechanisms. The invisible chains. The daily robbery you don't even notice. 2020. COVID hits. The Fed prints $4.5 trillion. Where does that money go first? Not to John, to banks, at 0% interest. Quantitative easing, they call it. The Fed buys bonds from banks, flooding them with cash. Banks loan it to hedge funds and billionaires at rock-bottom rates. They buy stocks, real estate. Bitcoin. Asset prices explode. Stocks up 60%. Houses up 40%. Bitcoin goes from 7,000 to 60,000. A year later, that money trickles down to consumer prices. Groceries up 20%, gas up 30%, rent up 25%. John's salary? Up 5%, if he's lucky, if he didn't get laid off. Congratulations, John. You just took a 15% pay cut. Your paycheck says $75,000, but you can afford 15% less than last year. Meanwhile, Michael's net worth grew $40 million from the same money printing. His stocks went up, his real estate appreciated, his bonds paid out. He did nothing. The Fed printed money, gave it to rich people first, and by the time it reached John, it had already inflated prices. This is theft. Legalized, systematic, invisible. John isn't getting poorer because he's lazy. He's getting poorer because the Federal Reserve prints money, gives it to banks at 0% interest, who loan it to Michael's to buy more assets. By the time that money reaches John's paycheck, prices are already up 20%. His salary grew 5%. That's a 15% pay cut disguised as inflation. Inflation is like a game of musical chairs, except the Fed prints new chairs, gives them to rich people first, and by the time John gets in the room, all the chairs are taken and prices doubled. New money doesn't reach everyone at the same time. It flows downhill, first to banks, then to corporations, then to billionaires, last to workers. And by the time workers get it, the prices have already adjusted. The purchasing power is gone. Here's the trap. Wealth doesn't come from salary. It comes from assets. Houses, stocks, businesses, land, things that appreciate, things that generate passive income. In 1980, John's dad bought a house for $64,000. His salary? $21,000. That's 3 years of work. Doable. He saved, got a mortgage, bought the house. It appreciated, built equity, passed wealth to his kids. Today, that same house costs $420,000. John's salary? $55,000. That's 8 years of salary. But it's worse. He needs a 20% down payment. That's $84,000. At $700 per month savings, that'll take him 10 years to save. By then, the house will cost $600,000. The finish line keeps moving. He's running on a treadmill that speeds up every year. And stocks? In 1980, 20% of middle-class families owned stocks. Today, the top 10% own 89% of all stocks. The bottom 50% own 1%. 1. John is mathematically locked out of the assets that grow faster than inflation. Meanwhile, Michael owns 50 properties. They appreciate $1.5 million a year. He does nothing. Doesn't fix a pipe, doesn't paint a wall, just owns, and gets richer. John can't build wealth because assets, the only things that grow faster than inflation, are priced out of his reach. In 1980, his dad bought a house for 3 years of salary. Today, that same house costs 8 years of salary. John is mathematically locked out. Why does John pay 3 times more in taxes than Michael? Because the tax code treats income differently. John's salary? Quote, 16 labor, work, taxed at 25%. Federal income tax plus FICA plus state tax. Michael's investment gains. Capital gains. He bought stock, held it, sold it for a profit. Taxed at 15%, if he holds for over a year. Long-term capital gains rate. And Michael has accountants, expensive ones. They find loopholes, offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Delaware LLCs, charitable trusts, donor-advised funds, carried interest, step-up basis. His effective rate? 8%. The top 400 richest Americans paid an average of 8.2% in 2018. That's less than a school teacher, less than a nurse, less than a firefighter. The system punishes work. It rewards wealth. John pays 25% on his labor. Michael pays 8% on his wealth. The system taxes work harder than it taxes money. That's not a bug. That's the point. John graduated with $37,000 in student loans, 6% interest. That's $250 a month for 20 years. He'll pay back $60,000 on a $37,000 loan, $23,000 in interest. His car, $28,000 loan at 7%. His credit card, $6,000 at 22% because he had an emergency and couldn't pay it off. Between loans, he's paying $700 a month in interest. That's his entire savings. Every month. Gone. Not to principal, to interest. He's paying rent on money. Michael? He takes a $5 million loan at 2%. Portfolio loan, secured by his investments. Uses it to buy a commercial building. The building appreciates 8% a year. That's $400,000 in profit. He pays $100,000 in interest. Net gain, $300,000. From debt. For John, debt is a trap, a chain. It extracts wealth from his future and hands it to banks. For Michael, debt is a money printer, a tool, a leverage. He borrows cheap, buys assets that appreciate, pockets the difference. John borrows money at 18% to survive. Michael borrows at 2% to get richer. Same system, different rules. Who benefits from this system? Let's name names. BlackRock, Vanguard, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Citadel, State Street. These institutions control over $20 trillion in assets. That's more than the GDP of China, more than the entire U.S. economy. They own shares in every major corporation. They vote on board decisions. They influence policy. They lobby Congress. $500 million a year, financial sector lobbying, to write tax laws in their favor, to block regulations, to ensure bailouts when they fail. They put their people in government. Treasury Secretary, former Goldman Sachs partner, Stephen Mnuchin. Before him, Hank Paulson, also Goldman. Fed Chairman, Former BlackRock executive, Larry Fink, CEO of BlackRock, has more economic power than most presidents. This is regulatory capture. The referees work for the team. The people writing the rules are the same people who benefit from them. The revolving door. Wall Street to Washington to Wall Street. Make the rules, cash out, repeat. Let's do the math. 1980 to 2020. 40 years. Rand Corporation did a study. $50 trillion was transferred from the bottom 90% to the top 1%. 50 trillion. That's not a metaphor. That's a measurement, adjusted for inflation. If wages had grown with productivity, if workers got paid for the value they create, the average salary would be $102,000. John makes $55,000. Where did that $47,000 go? To Michael. The top 1% saw their wealth grow 300%. The bottom 50%? 0%. Actually, negative when you account for debt. John works 20% more hours than his dad did, but he's 30% poorer. Can't afford a house, can't afford kids, can't retire. Michael works 10 hours a week. Emails, board meetings, golf. He's 400% richer than his dad. This isn't capitalism. This is extraction. Systematic, legalized, unstoppable. John didn't fail. He was robbed. So, who won? Michael. And every Michael like him. The top 1%. BlackRock. Vanguard. Old money, new money. Tech billionaires. Hedge fund managers. Anyone who owns assets. Their wealth grew 300% in 40 years, while doing less work than ever, while working from yachts, while giving TED Talks about hustle. Who lost? John. And every John like him. 90% of the population. $50 trillion extracted from their pockets over 40 years through inflation, taxes, asset prices, debt. $1,000 at a time. A paycheck at a time. A rent increase at a time. John works harder than his grandfather, but he's poorer, and his kids, they'll be poorer still. Can't afford college without debt, can't buy a house, can't start a business. Social mobility in America? Lower than _20_ Denmark. Lower than Canada. Lower than Germany. A kid born poor has a 7.5% chance of reaching the top 20%. The castes are real, and they're hereditary now. Wealth passes down. Poverty passes down. The game is decided at birth. Remember the casino analogy from the beginning? John walks in with $100. Michael walks in with 10 million. Same table, same game. But Michael wrote the rules. The tax code? Michael's lawyers wrote it. Carried interest, capital gains, offshore havens. The Federal Reserve policy? Michael's friends run it. Jerome Powell, Larry Fink, Jamie Dimon. The asset prices? Michael's hedge funds set them. Buying up houses, bidding up stocks. And when Michael loses? Bailouts. Your tax money. Quote 21, 2008. 16 trillion in secret Fed loans. When John loses? _22_. The dealer works for the house. The house belongs to Michael. And you're just chips on the table. This isn't a game you can win by playing smarter. The game itself is designed for you to lose. And the worst part? Most Johns don't even know they're in a casino. They think it's a meritocracy. They blame themselves. So what now? I'm not going to tell you to quote 23 or quote 24. That's motivational speaker bullshit. This video won't make you rich. It won't fix the game. The trap is still there. The mechanisms are still running. The extraction continues. Tomorrow, next month, next year. But at least now you see it. The architecture, the mechanisms, the trap. Next time a politician tells you the economy is strong, you'll know what that means. Strong for WHO. Stock market at record highs. Great. Who owns the stocks? Next time a billionaire says, quote, 26, you'll know how. Through a system rigged in his favor since 1944. Through tax breaks. Through asset inflation. Through bailouts. Next time they blame you for being poor, you'll know it's a lie. A lie designed to keep you running on that treadmill, to keep you blaming yourself instead of seeing the system. The poverty trap isn't about laziness. It's not about bad choices. It's about mathematics. And the math is designed to keep you exactly where you are. Does knowing this make you happier? Probably not. Does it make you richer? Definitely not. But it makes you honest. And in a world built on lies, that's something. You're not playing against other players. You're playing against the house. And the house always wins. Welcome to the real game, the one that was always being played. While they told you it was about hard work and talent, now you know.